Welcome back to Exegetical Tools Basic Greek videos. In this video we're going to look at the Pluperfect active indicative. And this should be a shorter video because the Pluperfect is very rare in the New Testament. It doesn't occur that often, and the paradigm is very unique. As we'll see, it has a lot of constituent parts that are pretty unique just to this form. So what you'll see first of all is that there's an augment and a reduplication. That's pretty unique. It is unique. It's the only tense form that has that. The reduplication, you can see this is building off the perfect tense stem, which has a reduplication. But then it also has this augment that is kind of correlating this tense form with the past tense. So the pluperfect's generally going to be a past tense translation in English, as you'll see over here in my translations. Now, as far as the aspect goes, since this is building off of the perfect tense stem, it's going to share the same aspect as the perfect, which is the state of aspect, as I've noted. Remember, some scholars want to say the perfect tense stem has imperfective aspect, and it's different from the present tense in different ways. But we're going with state of aspect, and even those who say that the perfect tense stem is imperfective in aspect, even they will say the resultant translation will often be stative, because the verbs that are often used with perfect tense verbs are kind of stative in meaning, like I know, I see, things like that. I know is a good example. That's a very stative verb. You either know or you don't. So, however you take the aspect, whether you take it as imperfective or whether you take it as stative, the resultant translation is often going to be stative anyway. And I think that the aspect itself is probably better considered as emphasizing a state. If you want to read up more on that again, you can look at our annotated bibliography on aspect, verbal aspect. If it's not up yet, it should be up soon. Just keep checking back. And not a whole lot has been written on the pluperfect. There's been a bunch written on the perfect, and I think the general assumption is that whatever's true of the perfect will end up being true of the pluperfect, except that the pluperfect is more past tense oriented. Okay, so Robertson takes a more traditional view of the pluperfect. He says the past perfect emphasizes completion in past time. It was like sticking a stake in the past and marking the completion up to that point. So Robertson says, all right, well, here we are in the present, right here, and here's the past, here's the future. And what he's saying is that it's basically like you're doing an action, and then you stick a stake in the ground, and that's where the action ended, and it results, it marks completion up to that point. Now, most people would also say, even under this traditional view, that this would result in a state in the past. So you now have this state that you're in the past, and that state will either continue or not into the unforeseeable future. Sorry. It may continue, may not, we don't know. So an example sentence would be something like, up until 7 o'clock last night, I had studied a lot of Greek. And I had studied a lot of Greek suggests that as of 7 o'clock, you were in this state of knowledge. I knew Greek. And then this state of knowing Greek will continue for a while. We hope very long. We hope so. You might forget it like tomorrow. Remember, this is the present, so you're speaking about it from the present, but you're speaking about it as having ended right there. And so at the point you're speaking it, you're likely still in that state, maybe. It's not necessarily true, but the state was here. You may still be in it, you may not. You're not commenting on it, so we don't know. And then that state may erode or whatever from that point. But this is the basic idea. You did something up to a point in past time. Now, from an aspectual perspective, you would say that the verb is emphasizing this resultant state in the past tense. So you're just saying something like, so if this was something like the verb to know, and it were in the pluperfect, you might be able to say, I knew. If it were something like, I knew him, or I knew the evil which had been done, you could say, I knew the evil which had been done. Now that sounds like a simple past translation, but I knew because the verb know is kind of stative, you either know or you don't, I knew suggests that in the past I was in this state of knowing. At the time that, at 7 o'clock, I knew Greek. That would be a pretty good translation of the Pluperfect, I think, because it emphasizes a state of knowing in the past. So if that's a little difficult or confusing, then it's not really a huge deal. Some examples of the Pluperfect may be exegetically significant, and if they are, then you can look up some help in advanced grammars or do a little more research on the whole aspect thing in using our annotated bibliography if you want. Now, the paradigm, I didn't look at the rest of the constituent parts, actually. The rest of them help you recognize it. It has its own stem, present active, a pluperfect active tense stem, and then the kappa tense formative, the a connecting vowel, and then the secondary active personal ending. So this makes sense right here because it's correlated with past time for the most part. And then the a connecting vowel, that is very distinctive to have a diphthong connecting vowel. And be careful because this ain, that looks like luain, that looks like the present active infinitive, but it's not. You'll be able to know that because you also have this reduplication and in some cases the augment, but notice that the augment does not always occur in the New Testament. Sometimes the augment falls off and it disappears, but in that case you would still have the reduplication, the kappa, and the a connecting vowel. Okay, so some of these forms are just kind of crazy long. Elelukemen, elelukete. All right, so if you see this, it's going to be pretty distinctive, I think. If you can memorize just these constituent parts up here, that would be very good. So le, lu, ke, a, and n, the endings. However you want to do that, 6 constituent parts. And remember that this sometimes does not occur, but you should memorize it anyway. So the resulting translation, I'm going to have down here, I had loosed, you had loosed, he had loosed, etc. So I'm doing notice that this is equivalent to an English past perfect. So like the English perfect would be I have loosed, suggesting I've done something in the past, and maybe the resultant state is still in effect or something like that. But with the past perfect, it's I had loosed, you had loosed, etc., suggesting you did something in the past and maybe there's a resultant state, maybe not. It's kind of flexible. In Greek, that's kind of a wooden translation. As I said before, you might want to consider what translation will best get across a past state. And you always want to look for contextual clues. What's the context suggesting about when this action occurred, how it's being portrayed? Are there other explicit indicators such as temporal indicators, like if it says at 7 o'clock or yesterday, that's giving you a temporal indicator that this is past time, and maybe it's wanting to get at a state or something like that. So those are considerations to keep in mind. And you always have the advanced grammars, intermediate grammars like Wallace on hand to help you out, and the lexicons, which will often give you simple glosses or translations of the phrase you're looking at. So that's it. That is the Pluperfect active indicative. Hope that was helpful. Leave us a comment if you want. Let us know what you think. If these are helpful, if you have any questions. And otherwise, we'll see you next video.